Hi everyone. Thanks a lot for being with me again. Today, I have a special guest on my channel. You might have seen him on YouTube because he has a really cool channel, Ghost of Jung. Joe, thanks a lot for joining me. Just feel free to introduce yourself in a few words.
Yeah, I am Ghost of Jung. I'm an INTJ 5w6. My YouTube channel, small. I think I just got like 914 subscribers, so not like blowing anyone away, not monetizing, but it's just a place where I kind of put like fun YouTube content. I interview other people in type, from like people that are unknown to kind of well-known people. So that's kind of just where I put a lot of my content. It's fun. It's an outlet.
Yeah, I really recommend everyone to watch Joe's channel. He's got a really cool section of interviews with people like Dario Nardi or John Beebe. So it's really high quality, well-researched stuff. I will link your channel below so people can go over and take a look. Perfect. So let's dive right into it. Joe, you're an INTJ, you're an Enneagram 5w6. Mm-hmm. And you're an MBTI practitioner. So you do coaching sessions with people based on MBTI because you're a certified MBTI practitioner. I was wondering how you see your type being reflected in the work that you do every day.
Yeah, that's a good question. I had to ponder this because I think it's really just the introvert intuition, the NI coming out, really just like the pattern recognition when your clients are talking to you about like a certain experience that they repeatedly have, or almost like a speech pattern that they have all the time. And then you can say like, I see this trend in you, thus I think your type is this. And I would recommend, not telling you what to do, I'd recommend like maybe realizing that might be a potential blind spot or a weakness. And you could probably do these things and report back and see how they work. So I think the pattern recognition there really, really helps. I think being kind of like the skeptic of the Enneagram 5, of like certain people will try to make excuses about their personality. And I'm always like, are you sure that's just like almost like prodding a little bit, needling a little bit so they can kind of recognize that they're already being defensive, even though they're working the personal development path. They can almost be like, yeah, the MBTI stuff didn't work. I'm like, no, it's working. You're just kind of resistant. So I think the 5w6 problem solver, which I hate, it's like the worst description ever, but I guess maybe the just the skeptic part of it really helps with coaching. I look at my coaching in not a like ENTJ or ESTJ TE like direction prescriptive manner. I kind of look at it as I think my quote from Galileo was like, you can't teach a man anything, you can only help him discover what's in himself. So I don't prescribe, I just like reveal, and then they pretty much know what they need to do from there.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I mean, coaching is about helping someone access their inner selves and inner resources and basically find the answers themselves. And I like that your T parent knows when to step down and say, okay, this is your work to do. I'm not going to control you or direct you in moments when I really don't need to do that.
And yeah, you're right. And that's the type itself helped me label that thing, because I know from my earlier life that I would just want to tell people. I thought if someone asked for my advice, they were basically just saying, fix me, please. And that's where the TE came out, but I don't think that's the right way to use it in coaching.
Definitely not. Right. I'm curious about the Enneagram 5 problem solving thing you mentioned. What is it that annoys you about it?
Just in relation to the other descriptions. Like, okay, so I'm reading this Wisdom of the Enneagram based on your recommendation. Thank you so much. And if anyone needs Enneagram help, Teo is the absolute master at it. But there's so many cool descriptions of the other types. Like 5w4 is the iconoclast. That's what I want to be. That's cool. And then the problem solver, like so weak. Like I think I saw one that was actually cool called the Sage. That's cool. But I think all the other types have better descriptions. So I was kind of let down.
Right.
Or archetypes, should I say.
So you don't mean the part that actually talks about how an Enneagram 5 solves problems, but simply the wording used that seems a little bit superficial to you.
Yes. Yeah,
Right.
it was really just kind of like an aesthetic ego thing. Like, because the INTJ, you get the mastermind. Like that's, oh my gosh, that's so cool. But then 5w6, you get problem solver. It's like, that's what I would almost label like the ISTJ. So I don't know, maybe they're just a little bit different, but spot on how I operate, the intense cerebral type as they label it. That's totally me.
Right. Okay, so you told me a little bit about how basically you used your strength in your coaching practice. Now I'd like to know how you managed to overcome certain type-related difficulties, because I imagine there were certain patterns related to being an INTJ and related to being an Enneagram 5 that kind of created these milestones for you in your career so far, whether it was in your coaching or at previous jobs as well.
Yeah, I think when I was early in my career, I was doing a lot of cold calling, sales, like really just all cold. Like there's no warm leads. It was a list. It was auto dialer. I really got over the fear of rejection. I don't know if it's a cognitive function there, or it's just like being an introvert. Felt like I was imposing on people's days and work and whatever they were doing, and I don't like that. So I just felt bad for them as soon as I would call. And but I really think of that as I got better at it. I learned the script. I learned how to like break into any conversation. That helped a lot. It sort of was like a rite of passage that I'm so glad I went through. I'm glad I spent like 5 years doing the worst type of extroverted activity to really like build that part of me. Because I had to sit in extroversion for 8 hours a day. I had to just be in it. And if you want to go real deep, it's that extroverted feeling type where you're kind of harmonizing with people, you're fake laughing at their jokes and asking how their day is going, things like that. But I had to learn that. So I think that was actually a challenge that became like, I look back and be like, thank God I did that. I think we can go back to TE to kind of talk about with my business now. It was really getting past that I'm just not ready yet phase the entrepreneurs go through, where it's like, if I just read this book, then I can start. I think I kind of took a little bit of that like TE energy and just running with it, and then learning as you go and developing like actually developing the skill that you're talking about, or becoming more of an expert, even though you're an amateur when you start. That I think I actually just summoned my like SE of the like the ESTP energy, where they're just like, they just plow ahead, not necessarily having all the intellectual and or like they don't know a lot about what they're talking about, but they just kind of just go. And I think some of the influencers are right when they say, just start. Don't overthink it, just go. And then this is something I think you and I have talked privately about, but I think every NI user, INFJ, INTJ, really getting nervous about what to charge. Like, am I smart enough to charge this? Do I have enough experience? Do I have enough clout? Do I have enough followers? That sort of thing. I think for me, I don't know if it's FE being terrible, where I'm like nervous about how people will, I don't like that. It's like an ego thing. I don't want people to think bad about me. I don't know. Maybe you could coach me live right now, but it's like, I don't know what that's about, but I've gotten over that. I've gotten over I need to like have a certain amount of years before people will pay me more money. I've gotten over that now. I just tell them this is the price, and most people are like, well, that's what he charges, and there's not really negotiation.
Yeah, what I see about that and about what you're describing is that moment when NI decides on something is like, okay, I've been analyzing, now I picked my path and I'm going to go with it. And I think that's one of the really awesome strengths. Perhaps it was related to low SE and low FE. Both of this contributed to a certain fear of something, but once things clicked and once it became clear to you, you had no problem continuing doing that. It could maybe be an explanation for it.
Yeah, it could be that. And I was just thinking about the Enneagram as well, how this might relate, or where I am now. Like what I really like about the Enneagram is the levels of development. And I am convinced I'm like in that healthy region, but I could easily see as I was coming through my career how I was like 4, 5, 6. I was in that kind of average, and I had a lot of fears, and I had a lot of like retreating and withdrawing and criticizing the world. And then I kind of got into that. I think they would call it like, I think it's like active participator or something like that. But it's like when you almost look like an extrovert as an INTJ, and you really engage certain parts of your personality. I can see that. I can use the levels of development in my business to be like, how healthy am I like right now? Am I doing the right thing, or am I retreating into that negative, unhealthy space?
I mean, talking to you quite a lot on LinkedIn, on WhatsApp, on video call, I can definitely see that the Enneagram 5 is developing into a very, very healthy range. I can barely see any signs of, a lot of withdrawing and trying to prove to the world that you're more intelligent or superior intellectually. I see a lot of healthy positioning with respect to how much you know, how much experience you have, and just simply owning it. And I think that's an incredible thing to be able to kind of, integrate into who you are.
Thank you, Teo.
Awesome. Okay, now I have 2 more questions to you, and they're kind of related to each other. Because you said you worked in recruitment, you had to do a lot of cold calling and interaction with a lot of people, and then you transition to coaching. So again, you have a lot of exposure. I was wondering if you kind of picked up on any patterns of people that you work best with, MBTI type wise and Enneagram type wise.
Yeah. Professionally, I'm pretty sure ENTP I'm really good with, and that falls just in line with the shadow types and the kind of the BB model, the BB model, or the 8 function model. And the reason I say that is because the ENTP literally fills in all of my weak spaces, especially in a business relationship where that TI logic comes out with like, this is the process of how we sell X product, or even just coaching me, like, here's how you sell yourself. Here's how you need to set things up and guide them through the process. Like, I don't really think that INTJ is process driven like the ENTP might be. I could be, my logic could be jacked up there, but I've had a lot of help from ENTPs kind of guiding the right direction, with also using NE as here's the multiple paths you could choose. Once you've chosen it, I can help direct it. And that sounds like maybe that might be TE, but I think the TI logic I'm sorely lacking in, except when I'm criticizing other people. Now on the, I do think the ENFP, actually thinking about this, another NE type, but my first coach was an ENFP female, and I like poo-pooed all her ideas. I like swiped them away, but then like 6 months later, I realized she was right about everything. She saw the trend of my, like all my YouTube titles now are all because of her. And I had this weird FI resistance. Like, I don't want to be inauthentic. I don't want to put clickbait, but like that stuff's great and it works and people love it. And they never like say this title's BS. So that NE FI, the makes just the NE so good for me. So good to have that. In terms of Enneagram, since I'm still a noob, even though I'm reading this book, I think any like a 5-wing 4 would be really interesting for me. Still have that 5 core, but like they're a little bit different in the way that they do things. They're a little bit more like esoteric or into kind of meditative things, ethereal practices, and like I can get on board with it. And then I say any 8-1 or I think I'm kind of like I can understand them, so I can work well with them. I think 3 and 4 would be the hardest for me. And then recently a 9. Maybe be 2 and 4.
Right. Okay.
Certain 2s. I mean, I know you're a 2.
Yeah, but it would make sense because type 2 is most commonly found among ENFJs and ESFJs. So it would be quite connected to extroverted feeling, which is your blind spot function, trickster function. So it could trigger a lot.
It does. I've always said the ENFJs are the hardest type for me to get along with. So good that I didn't know that correlation. So, but what does 4 make sense there for me being not super in love with them?
I mean, 4 is most common among INFPs, ISFPs, but also INFJ sometimes ENFP, ESFP. But of course, you can find it in other types as well. Perhaps could be related to introverted feeling, but then again, it's not really your weakest function. So it might be related to some past experiences you had with the 4 that kind of triggered you or conditioned you to think in a certain way.
Yeah, I'm trying to, so when I learned to type, I went retroactively back and typed everyone and be like, what's my relationship with them? But I haven't been able to do that yet with Enneagram. I haven't been able to go back and be like, what are their types, and be like, oh, that makes sense. So I haven't been able to see if there's any 4s or 4s yet. But yeah. I think it's good. I think it's good. Yeah.
I think what you're saying about typing people in your past makes a lot of sense, because Enneagram is a bit more difficult to apply if you don't ask people questions, because it's much more about fears, motivations, desires, rather than the actual behavior. Of course, it can be reflected in behavior as well, but it's a bit more difficult to do from the outside as compared to the MBTI. So I think you are on something there, right?
Yeah. Because when you look at the lower levels of development for nearly all the types, they kind of look the same. Like you get like addiction, depression, withdrawing. It's like, yeah, suicide, acting out. It's like, that's how all the types are going to look when you get it. So it's not, I think the best one is like if you know someone well enough to know, like, what is the absolute thing that they fear most. Exactly. I think if you know them well enough, you can be like, this might be these 3 types.
That, and also looking at different ways of grouping the types, which kind of highlight something about behavior. Like, for instance, 3s, 7s, and 8s are assertive types, right? It's quite easy to see when someone is assertive, comes with a great deal of energy and takes control over the room, whereas a 5 like you is a withdrawn type, so it has the opposite pattern. And I think that can give us a pretty good glimpse into what's going on. But again, it's not the whole thing. We need to look at the desire and fear as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Joe, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience? Any insights about MBTI or Enneagram, or the 2 combined?
Well, we know that they're not as good as Big 5. I'm just kidding. Screw Big 5. No, this was great. I really appreciate you kind of having me on. I love to be interviewed by people. And I just want to let everyone know, like, I really didn't believe in Enneagram at all. I thought it was like, classic astrology or crystals or anything like that. But then, like, I have booked Teo a number of times and I've been like, okay, this is actually legit. So I think if anyone's like on that, it's not validated, it's not scientific, if you look into it, you will be like convinced. So I think just a little bit more open-mindedness about it and you will be convinced, because I'm a skeptical type, INTJ 5w6. So if it helped me, I think it will help anyone. That's what I want to say.
Thanks a lot, Joe. And again, I really recommend everyone to go check out Joe's YouTube channel, Ghost of Jung. Also, you can find him on LinkedIn for those of you who are active on that platform. He posts a lot of funny and valuable content on the MBTI. And if you're interested to talk to a certified MBTI professional, he's your man. Thanks a lot, everyone, for watching, and see you next week.